Welcome to Ben's Fireside interviews. Today we're talking to Julien Coustaury, co-founder of Fil Rouge Capital, Eastern Europe's leading venture fund. Julien has built his career in building mobile phone networks and businesses globally. Was part of Y Combinator's S11 class and an active founder of ABC Accelerator in Slovenia and ABC First Growth, which is ABC's VC arm. And together with Roger Blott, Julien founded Fil Rouge Capital back in 2016, which is now in the process of completing its third fund raise. So welcome, Julien. And please tell us more about yourself, and then we'll dive in.
Oh, quite a lot to say in terms of places I've been to and things that I've done. Yeah, started in telco, went to some crazy countries like Haiti, Papua New Guinea, and these kind of places to build and buy and turn around mobile networks. And then I decided that telecom was getting a little bit tired, and so was I, and had the chance to join a team as a co-founder, and was, I believe, the first team for the region ever accepted into YC. I suppose not the first foreign team, but really one of the first foreign teams, because YC was in its infancy at the time. And interestingly enough, my main mentor, the person I was sitting with 2 or 3 times a week, was Sam Altman, who is now the founder of OpenAI. I used to spend a lot of time with Sam on the phone and in YC's office. Then after that, I just thought that this was very interesting for me. I got hooked to the tech world when I was living in California, and decided at the end of our startup to actually replicate the YC model as much that this can be replicated. But we started ABC Accelerator in Slovenia exactly on this model, on the YC model. We plugged in a fund, ABC First Growth. To that point, I decided to write my own story and start Fil Rouge Capital with my former colleague from my telco days, Roger Blott. And here we are from very humble beginnings. Our first fund was 2.1 million. This was a friends, fools, and family fund. But we got 10 deals done there, and this fund is performing extremely well. And then we are now at our third fund. I believe that by the end of the year, we'll reach about 100 million of asset under management with, I think, 170 investment to date. So pre-seed and seed, mostly tech investments. I believe
Hugely impressive.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Fun for sure, adventurous for sure, impressive. I'll leave the other to judge it.
Fantastic. Julien, tell us a little bit about why this region, Eastern Europe, is such a fertile ground for this seed and pre-seed technology businesses.
Yeah, you have to go back in 2011 to 12 YC days and so on. I was just wondering what happens for founders in the region if they want to do something in the region. There was nothing. There hardly was one VC fund, actually, that was active then, but there was nothing like a pre-seed incubator or accelerator, whichever way you want to call that. And I just thought, you know what, this region is really underserved in terms of capital availability, but it's pretty much equally spread in terms of talent. And if you think that today with the digital revolution, the market is the world, basically, there is no reason why with a little bit of capital, some of those great founders cannot emerge from that region. So the idea came about to actually do something exactly along those lines. As I told you, I was looking for a way to move away from telco. I had been there, done that in telco. We had a pretty successful company then with a $6 billion exit. It was a group out of Seattle, and it was fantastic. But days were numbered, where telecom got commoditized and much less interesting. It was an idea for me in my region of adoption. I made the same mistake as Donald Trump. I married a Slovene lady, and it was a way for me to actually to do something interesting in my region of adoption. And in a bit more selfish way, I was getting a little bit older, and I got a little bit tired of the day-to-day grind, if you can understand what I mean.
Absolutely. Being of a similar age.
Yeah, and I just thought, what's the best way to really keep the coconut busy here, but not having to deal with the day-to-day of managing a very intense operation. And I thought VC could be along those lines. We are very fortunate to meet amazing founders. And guess what? They seem to like me. They seem to like interacting with me. And I just thought, okay, maybe that's a way for me to continue influencing businesses by helping founders without having to deal with the day-to-day of a business.
And Julien, you touch on a very interesting point. Essentially, this. What do you think you, Roger, and the team bring to the table? And how are you finding these amazing founders?
Okay, so as far as what we bring to the team, we have a pretty interesting approach. We really don't pressure founders to take our help. So we are not on their back asking them every minute, hey, have you done this or do you need us for that? But whenever they need us, we are a WhatsApp chat away from a simple written message advice to a Zoom call, or if need be, a one-on-one meetings. There have been founders which have met on a quarterly basis in a physical way. We've met, and a few of them are a bit scattered now around the world. But for example, some of them moved away from the region. I would say one of them operates from Portugal, for example. This is a good example. And we make a point to meet sometimes in Portugal, but more often we meet in Paris or London whenever it's convenient. And these are pretty interesting sessions because what we do is we go for a long walk. We go to Hyde Park and then we circle around Hyde Park. And after 3-4 hours of discussion, maybe we grab some food, and that's the exchange. So that is what we bring. We bring years of operational experience, which a young kid of 25 years old running $100 million business does not necessarily have. No later than yesterday, I spent an hour recruiting the CFO for one of our best investments. So that's what I do. I'm on demand. That's how I like to call myself for founders on the various range of support.
And how do you?
Sorry. Yeah,
Sorry, please finish.
No, your second question is how do we find them?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was. Is there a sort of an ecosystem in place for the community to grow in the same way? Obviously, Silicon Valley being the biggest and most well known, but we have a fintech hub in London. We have cybersecurity and security generally around in Paris. What is there an ecosystem where these founders meet and share ideas?
Yes, sure. The ecosystem is building up. I cannot compare with the Silicon Valley. Nothing can compare to the Silicon Valley, not even London, not even Paris. I'm sure you've been to Palo Alto. There's a road called Sand Hill Road. And if you ever drove that road, you will see that you have 250 VCs in that road. That's 250. To give you an idea, operating in our region, I can think of 3 or 4. It's 250. The magnitude is massive, and that's why I think it's very hard to compare. However, your question is on point. There is an ecosystem. First of all, we are part of it. We are probably being the only fund really out there with an accelerator and a VC fund. That is something that is very unique. We are probably, I would call us the biggest catalyst for the ecosystem here. That doesn't mean that there are no other players, but let's say that we really, with this pre-seed fund we have and this with VC seed and Series A fund, we are very unique and we really play a big role here. But nonetheless, there are AI associations, startup associations, of course, other VCs. So no later than yesterday, I attended a very technically oriented meetup where I was totally stunned to see 100 people in a room discussing coding opportunities and techniques. I was far beyond what my brain could withstand in terms of technicalities. But the ecosystem is there, definitely, back to your question, Ben. And it is just growing. And as anticipated 15 years ago, Talents is here in this event yesterday. To give you an idea, there is a Slovene team building the Slovene equivalent to OpenAI. So they are developing an LLM based on Slovene language and Slovene data. You could argue that it's needed, it's not needed. I'm not discussing that here, but just to give you an idea, there are researchers, there are very talented computer scientists, and that is the ecosystem. We are part of it, and that's how we find those amazing founders. They are here too. Talent is equally spread.
Absolutely. And you've talked a lot about Slovenia being your base, of course, but tell us a little bit about, is there equal measure talent across the whole of the region, from Poland through to Croatia, potentially even Ukraine when things settle down, Romania, etc.?
Look, our headquarters is in Zagreb. We have offices at the moment in Slovenia, in Bucharest, and in Tirana, in Albania. So that is really our hunting ground, as I like to call it. Look, talent. You could maybe try to segregate talent into two type of talents. You have the entrepreneurial talents, like people with desire to create, to be entrepreneur, and then you have technical talents, like people talented to code, to resolve technically fundamental issues, and that is probably more a factor of your educational system, I would say. I don't want to get into too much details, but and in those two fronts, you have amazing talents. It's Look, the Mathematics University of Zagreb is stunning. We've invested in a couple of guys which are PhDs and have won Olympiads in mathematics, and I have 5 or 6 white papers that they did just for fun. And this is completely stunning. You have such a talent there at the university. You have many institutes as well. There are a few also in Slovenia. In Belgrade, you have an amazing tech university. Ex-Yugoslavia, by tradition, was full of technical talents. That was the mostly driven by Tito and all these kind of
Yeah.
politics about production, technical things, producing
Yeah.
technical things. And then you have the second type of talent, which are the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit. And here, this region is amazing. If you think about Albania, for example, which is an ecosystem that is really in its infancy for a number of reasons. They are a bit late, okay, but if you could see the number of amazing entrepreneurs with a vision, with a drive that you find there, it's also incredible. We have a couple of examples in our last accelerator batch of very young kid from Tirana with huge talent, huge entrepreneurial talent. So yes,
Interesting.
there are talents.
So, what I'll move on to next is really two segments. In the first segment, I want to talk a little bit about, let's talk about the flesh of the argument here, which is really around the investee companies. They're the things that drive your performance and drive your sort of interest, if you like. So, let's talk about your biggest winners and tell us a bit more about these businesses. And then let's also talk a couple of things that didn't go well and what your reaction, why didn't they go well, and what was your experience learning from that. And then in the second segment, let's put all of that together and understand what your returns profile has looked like so that people can really get to understand what outcomes in terms of performance come from that region and specifically from your fund.
Sure. So in terms of what went well, we have a couple of examples. So essentially, our investment strategy is very simple: is build locally, sell to the world. I detailed that to you a little bit earlier on. As long as you attack something that can be sold digitally, there is no reason why you cannot sell from Zagreb to New York, because we are no rocket scientists here. So we have a couple of examples. Probably Native Teams is I would say, one of our portfolio highlights. They are an employer of record. They are competing with the likes of Deal, Remote. Their growth is amazing, and this is a very typical example of what we invest in. The founder is a British guy out of London who started this business in Skopje, Macedonia, and developed his team further in Zagreb. So I wouldn't know the head count now, but I think he's scattered a bit all around. Let's say maybe 200 employees. I would need to check, but out of those 200 employees, you've got 16 Skopje and 15 Zagreb or something like that. And the reality is that he's selling his services in 83 or 84 countries in the world. I mean, we've got other examples. This mathematical team that I mentioned to you doing some marketing tech stuff is also very interesting from that standpoint. It's a team of 10, 12 PhD in math or this kind of profile in an apartment in Zagreb, and 100% of their revenue is US based. Maybe not 100, but 98%. They have a few customers in Croatia because it's like friendly customers. But so this is really what we try to do. Let's see what company can tackle a worldwide problem or at least a pan-continental problem.
Yeah,
And there's no reason why you cannot tackle it from Zagreb, Tirana, or Belgrade, for that matter. What
for
didn't
sure.
go so well? It certainly, it would deserve maybe more than 2 minutes. But if I wanted to summarize, maybe the biggest risk is the team. Team implosion is something that has cost us a couple of investment, definitely. And I would say maybe if I want to reflect on what we do, I think we've made a couple of mistakes because sometimes we believed in a business even more than the founders did. I can think of a couple of examples where we've been quite pushy with the founder, maybe also being too lenient in accepting his request for follow-on fundings because we believed in what he was doing and maybe we believed more than he did, and this ended up in a write-off. So I
Yeah,
think these are a couple of things that we need to reflect on is that, and this is why we like pushy entrepreneurs, because we need to be pulled. We cannot push. We are not on the front line.
yeah, yeah. No, understood. And when we kind of transition towards talking about the performance, etc., what is your success hit rate, if you like? Obviously, at seed and pre-Series A, the hit rate normally industry is quite low. It's almost like 85% unsuccessful and 15%
Yeah.
successful. So, what is your sort of success rate, do you think, at this for the first couple of funds so far?
This is an interesting metric here. I think our success rate is very high. And maybe to your surprise, I will maybe tell you that it's too high. And too high because, in my opinion, we didn't take enough risks in the past. So as a result, we have a very low failure rate, but we might have also a middle range type of company, which is also a bit too high.
Yeah,
Thankfully, we have fantastic winners, but I would probably have traded a few more winners
yeah,
for all that mass of middle ground type of company, which are surviving, delivering decent result, but in the end are a lifestyle business for their founders and won't return much. So the ratio you're asking about is a bit tweaked or skewed, more exactly in our case, because I
yeah,
think that, and it's also a factor of this region. The cost, the overall cost of doing businesses are much lower here, which means you can, if need be, a founder can become Raymond profitable very easily and then keep on surviving and his head just above the parapet for a very long time, which means they don't die, but in terms of returns for us, they don't deliver much. Our hit rate is very high. If I really look at our real hit rate, the one that delivers fund returners, I suppose we are probably in the 20 to the 25% range, which is probably on the
top
top
end,
quart
absolutely.
top end of the industry, but
Yeah,
that is what it really is if you discard the ones that should have died and haven't.
yeah. And how have Fund One, very small, and a test bed, if you like, I get. How have the performances of Fund One, Fund Two done, and what are your plans for Fund Three, and where are you at with that?
So Fund One was a test bed indeed,
Hmm.
and it's doing extremely well. It has DPI, it has a above 4x TVPI. So again, Fund One is ranking in its vintage, definitely a top quartile. More interestingly, because a bit more meaningful, Fund Two, which was 46 million, is now a top quartile fund in EIF's records of fund invested. So that's probably a more meaningful data. Fund 3 has a trajectory which is quite extraordinary. In Fund 3, we are almost at 2 after only 6 months of vintage there. We've had one exceptional deal which propelled the TVPI. So the prospect of Fund 3 are just amazing, probably better than all our funds so far. But that's also a nature of being a little bit more savvy and getting access to better deals just because our brand name is stronger. So we now have founders which are talking to Sequoia at the same time they are talking to us. 10 years ago, those guys would have laughed at us. But believe it or not, these are people that are in the valley, but originally from our region, and just talk to us and they say, look, we hear a lot about you in the region. We're very attached to the region. We love Sequoia, we love Axel, we love all the big names, but it means a lot for us to have you around because we've heard so many good things and the region needs to strive too. So yeah, there's been a turning point for us. Performance has been exceptional, and it seems that it continues to be.
And what are you looking for in Fund 3 in terms of final close, in terms of size? And I also, so that's one part, and how much of that journey have you already covered in the first close? And then the other part is something you touched on there, which is really interesting. So these big guys, the Sequoias, the Axels, etc., how are they treating your region in terms of potential investee type of businesses? Or do they look you as their eyes and ears and would invest with you, if you like, by you becoming the prime lead into those potential investments?
So look, Ben, it would be very pretentious to claim that the big guys look at us. What is probably a more fair way to say is that whenever they screen a little bit the region, and this happens for all of them, let's say twice a year, it is fair to say that they call us. Okay? They don't look at us. I cannot lie. I'm not a trendsetter. We are not trendsetters here. They do call us all the time when they visit us and they ask, what's happening? What are you looking at? What have you invested in? Is there anything we should look at? We are in direct contacts with the guys from London. All those Silicon Valley funds now have an antenna in London. We shouldn't underestimate the Nordics fund as well, which are very big. Also looking now a little bit at the region, such as Creandum and those guys. They are indeed they've assigned a partner to the region. And so, yeah, we have constant exchanges. We meet as well in the
Yeah.
various events. We make a point of having breakfast as well together, also outside of our region. And on an ad hoc basis, when there is one opportunity I believe is a match, yeah, they get an email from me. And I'm very lucky because I don't do that so often. They always take the call with the founder.
Yeah. Interesting. And just coming back to the fund structure, size, etc., what are the characteristics there?
Yeah, so we have a target size of 55 plus 5. So we have 5 million for an accelerator fund, which is completely separated. And we have 55 million for a VC fund. The VC fund is at 44 at the moment. We are closing 7 now. So we will be at 51 by mid-January. We've got a couple of institutions still in the mix. So I guess 55, 60 is now, the target for us. So we've got
Okay.
let's say another 10 million to find before we close. We have this vision that we don't want to become too big.
Yeah.
It is important for us to remain what we call ourselves a boutique VC. And by boutique, we mean every founder has an opportunity to talk to a member of our investment committee. That is something we believe other funds are not doing too well. And that is where we would like to differentiate ourselves. We want founders to have a touch point with Fil Rouge Capital. That is an investment decision maker, i.e. someone that sits at the investment committee. So 55, 60 will be our end game here. So
Okay.
another 10 million to go.
And again, it's a two-pronged question. One, is that 55, 60, it's not a lot in the scheme of things in terms of global raises for funds, etc. Do you feel that you're probably capacity constrained in terms of the region itself? Or why as a third fund, lots of other funds, when they get to their third vintage, they're probably in the 100 million plus?
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. I think for us, the philosophy is maybe I'm 53. I think Roger is 62. We we've done our days where we worked for a publicly listed operator out of Seattle. We went after 15 licenses around the world. We played that game. We did road shows. We raised billions, and we bought for billions. We sold for billions. We sold for zero as well. Sometimes we lost money. Not to say that we always, but in the end, we exited. We sold this company for a very good exit. So we've played the game of growth and so on. We are not in that game. We'd like to, as I told you, we want founders to speak to a decision maker. And more importantly, we want the team to remain a bunch of friends, not taking them seriously, but taking the job very seriously. So we wanna have fun. We don't want to become a machine. We know of a couple of our peers, which we respect very much, but which have reached more than 100 employees.
Yeah.
We've been there, done that. I've run businesses in with a couple of thousands of employees and even more in subcontractors. It's not our game. So we have this in mind. And we also think that if we want to be consistent with quality, and the region we operate in probably has guts to absorb a vintage every 5 years, what we believe 60 to 70, maybe we can go 5, 10 more, but that is the ballpark whereby we believe that we can keep everything in that range of what we like to do and where we can return money to our LPs.
I think that's a great strategy because, quite honestly, it means that the smaller you are, the better the return profile can be. And also, of course, it means that as a team, you're more reliant on the carry than you are on management fees to make a living, right? Which is hugely important in this game, as for investors and LPs. Julien, we're coming to the close here. I'd love for you to leave the sort of final words for folks to pick up on. From my side, look, I think this is a really interesting part of the world. There is no doubt that this talent is in the region and relatively low cost, it has to be said at this juncture. Ask my viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed this content, give us the thumbs up, the usual thing, and subscribe. But Julien, the final words for you.
Talent is equally spreaded. Capital is not. So come to our region. It's a world of opportunity for investors to make amazing returns. I cannot tell you better.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll be back next week.